Hello, Victoria.
Hi, Jerry.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, I think.
That's good.
I saw your mom out walking yesterday morning.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
Good morning. Or good afternoon.
Good morning. What's wrong with you? You got the virus?
I got the virus. Good evening here. Hey, I'm so used to working in the mornings. What can I say?
How are you, Dan?
Doing good. Good evening, Miss Victoria. Hopefully we won't go too terribly late today.
Well,
I've got my coffee, so I'm good to go.
everybody lays the end result to you, Dan.
I know. Good or bad. Good or bad.
How are you liking your new house?
Oh, it's great. It's fantastic. We just got some gutters and downspouts put on just this last week, you know. The storms when they come here, the weather's a bit different. It's got subtropical, so when the storms come in, they come in pretty heavy, but then they're over. They don't last all day.
Kind of like Florida.
Yeah, really, exactly.
How's the peach crop this year?
The beach,
Peach.
crop. I have no idea. We've that's in a different part of Georgia than where we are.
Those Cherokee County.
Yeah, that's up somewhere near Atlanta. We're probably about 6 hours from there, 4 or
Oh,
5
wow.
hours anyhow. We get out some. Again, it's a little more open down here than it is up there yet. We do our Wednesday morning breakfast. No Lehigh restaurants down here.
Say that again?
We do our Wednesday morning breakfast. There's unfortunately no Lehigh restaurants down here.
Oh, okay. I understand that.
Now, did you say that they were not open, Jerry?
I don't think they are.
I said that to a friend of mine, and he told me yesterday that they are.
Yeah, I
Oh.
heard they are too. I heard they are under the guidelines.
Okay. Yeah, that was always our Wednesday morning stop.
I know. I saw you there, I think, once.
Yeah, we saw you several times. You wouldn't say hi. You just kind of nodded.
Well, that's when I used to take the elder statesman there for dinner, or not dinner, but breakfast.
Yeah, no, it was fine. It was
Hey,
fine.
before Pat gets on, make sure she goes last, would you, Dan? Because she's
Thanks,
being
Jerry.
oh my God, there she is. Oh no.
Well, I think we've all promised her to go first, and so that she can get in and get out and go.
I know. She even asked John Frew and Dick Schneider if she could go first.
I didn't ask Dick Schneider that. Oh my gosh.
But she did ask John Frew.
Oh yeah, I know. That's what I heard.
I asked who?
John
John
Frew?
Frew.
I didn't ask John Frew. Oh my gosh. So Victoria, the women that sell those hot buns, those cinnamon buns. Oh my God, those are the most amazing cinnamon buns I've ever had in my life.
Did you try the fry cakes?
No.
Or the fry pies?
Where are they from?
The same ladies.
What lady is that?
Oh, the Amish up at the farm stand.
Oh God, I bought their bread and their turnovers.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
You got to get the fry pies, and then I actually ate them cold.
Fry pies, what's in that?
It's like a piece of pie, but like folded, and then it's like coated in this like crusty, sugary. And
Oh,
it's filled with like, I think the flavors are sweet raspberry and maybe like blueberry, but they were gone by Saturday morning.
oh,
Yeah, they're really good.
those cinnamon buns. I mean, everybody here just wanted to take a piece, and like in 3 seconds they were all gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They are delicious.
yeah. Their food is awesome.
When you said the Big Gray Barn, I was like, I don't know what that is, so I had to ask DJ about it.
15% credit on car and motorcycle policy.
But he said that's what they used to call it, the Big Gray Barn.
Oh,
Waiting for Adina Menzel to sing your own theme song.
those women are awesome cooks. I'm here to tell you. Wow.
Yeah.
What is the name of their bakery?
It's in Mount
Victoria?
Morris, right, Victoria?
Yeah, I think they're the same family that helped build the barns, the greenhouse, and then the barns. And I think it's their wives that come up every Friday and sell everything.
Yep.
Vice President takes center stage to ignite
If you get there after 4 o'clock, the selection is
the spotlight. The
quite picked over.
on ABC.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Marianne.
Hey, Marianne.
I don't know what time I got there.
I saw you one time. It was
Darkest mornings every day at 5.
wasn't it a Saturday though?
No, it was a Friday.
Oh,
It's online.
I was coming back from somewhere.
They aren't there on Saturday, are they?
No.
I didn't think so.
The families of
And my niece wanted the cinnamon buns, and I wasn't going to get anything, but then I got them.
Once you see it, you can't resist.
Yes.
have you tried the caramel ones?
No, is that what you tried?
No, I just got the the regular white
Yeah.
frosted ones because I didn't know how the other ones would taste.
Me neither. I mean, I'm sure they would taste good.
Yeah,
this evening.
Hey.
Just finishing another shift.
Marianne, that Rose of Sharon is really pretty.
For me,
Thank you.
That's really pretty purple. I'm waiting for it to have like a baby so I can take the baby home.
Sounds
Hey,
good.
Marianne,
Yeah.
I tried to send you an email 3 times and I don't know what's going on, but would you send me a email with your name on it
Sure.
so that I get you in my address book?
Sure will.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Absolutely, Terrell.
Hey,
Ham, Amber.
Victoria?
Yeah,
So you've
Yeah, Victoria, if you can make me a co-host again so I can share my screen.
perfect. I was just going to say that I made Amber, Pam, Jerry, and you all co-hosts in the event that my internet dies again.
during the summer clearance event, Lisa
Your internet's not gonna die.
$199 with over 200
It was a sign from above.
Whose TV do I hear?
when you choose America. You'll
Evelyn's.
hear difference using the latest.
Somebody just turned it off, Pat.
I'm going to start recording now.
How many do we have?
Oh, wait, I think I already was.
You were.
We have 15.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Hi,
For a
Mike.
budget meeting? That is wonderful.
16.
That's even better. Dan,
Yes, sir.
considering that this is a special meeting, I don't think we have to do the pledge or anything, do we?
Pam is nodding affirmatively, so I would think it doesn't
Well,
hurt.
then, I don't want to get in trouble with Pam, so I just,
You won't get in trouble with me. Just a meeting's a meeting, no matter if it's a workshop or a meeting.
I better call the meeting to order and let's get started, and I hope you'll,
We're missing Dan, are we?
Yeah, Dan's not here.
Williver first.
Well, we'll wait for Dan then. I don't want him to miss the pledge. Sue, did you get a chance to ask Tim my question?
What was your question? Sorry. What did you
I
ask?
said, does Tim have the name of a person I could get a hold of to dispose
Oh,
ceremonially
Yeah.
American flags?
he can take them and the Boy Scouts will do it. Sorry.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So if you just want to leave them at the town hall, I can pick them up from there or however you want to do it.
They're in my office, so I'll make sure they end up in your office.
Okay. See, that's the danger when I read Town of Rush emails during my RIT workday, and I think, oh, I'll get back to that later. I shouldn't do that.
I get it. I get it.
Not
Well,
too, good.
there's Dan, so let's get started. I want to welcome everyone to our special budget meeting because last week we couldn't continue, so this week we will. Would you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
Visible.
with liberty and justice for all.
Don't we also need Mark?
Mark's here.
Oh,
Mark's keeping a low profile.
Yeah, he doesn't put his face up there.
oh, okay. I just expanded. Okay, gotcha.
Town clerk, call a roll, please.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Here.
Councilman Wolver,
Here.
Supervisor Cusey,
Here.
and Victoria Mazzetti.
Here.
Thank you. Dan, considering that this is a extension of the meeting we started last week, I will immediately put it in your hands and you're going to make sure that Pat goes.
First.
Oh, okay, okay.
First. Yeah, where we left it last week, when we got dropped off, Mark had just started, and but we want to get Pat in ahead of time because she ran through some new numbers relative to some scenarios that we had talked about. And Pat, if you want to go over those numbers, I'm going to share my screen to show everyone what those numbers look like if I find the right.
Okay, so while you're looking, Dan, go ahead. The first thing is that Dan asked me to look at what I think is going to happen next year, because really that's what we're talking about is to 2021. Now, today I lost 2 more family members, the nicest people ever, the Cornish family. I don't know if you guys know them. They're Rush residents. They were devastated. They were devastated to leave the program, but they're moving to Honeoye Falls.
Oh, okay.
So she wanted me to keep her money. I said, I can't do that. I have to return it to you. So we did lose a couple more kids today. So it's making us go in the red right now, which is really upsetting to me. We worked really hard on this program for 20 years. It's really devastating, but right now it is in the red. However, the people that are in the program and the people that have left have told me that the second semester, and this is what I've heard from the district as well, because I went to a meeting at the district, that starting in January, they're hoping to have everything back to a normal state where the kids would be going to school 5 days a week and they would be in classes normally like they would be before pre-COVID. These parents have told me that they hope to bring their kids back 5 days a week. A lot of them were full-time, but right now we just can't do it based on the district regulations of 2 days on and a day off and 2 days off. So all I can do is, tell you that it's going to go up by 50% because if you add those days back into my numbers now, it goes up 50% more. But the people who were stuck with their kids starting in March and they're still home with their kids. So it makes no sense to send them to daycare if they're not going to even be in school. So I've taken a major hit and there's nothing I can do about it. It's devastating to me. But the program is going to be in the red, probably until January. But I'm an honest person, and I'm, I've made other major cuts. I've cut the arts and crafts budget out. I've cut food way back. I've told the staff there's no prep time. The only things that we're really going to be paying for is minor amounts of food, which have to be prepackaged because of COVID, and them working it after school. So I've tried to make cuts in accordance to what we've had to deal with the numbers that I have. But that's why the numbers changed, is I just upped it by 50%, because Dan said, well, if the kids go back again, the normal times that they were scheduled for this fall, what would it look like? And it was 50% more than what it is right now.
Okay, now Pat, the budget numbers that I have on the screen, if everyone can see them, are the revised numbers that you had forwarded to me on Monday.
Yeah.
These would, Amber, Jerry, and Dan, these would replace your pages 71 and 72 in the budget packet. And the key numbers here, again, the second page, if we go there, shows the breakout of the reduction in the after-school program. And again, the various programs that Pat's responsible for. And you can see the numbers changed rather radically here as we go back to the first page. Originally in the budget, this number here was just under $2,000 down. That includes the seniors. So Pat, technically just recreation department was 6,000 to the good. We're now, with the adjustments that were given to us, we're down $29,000. And what that means to all of us is that now, instead of having to meet a $197,000 deficit, figure out how we solve that, that number bumps up to $223,000 to $224,000. Makes it, we're going the wrong direction, obviously, to try to resolve, what we want to do for the year. I think we all would like to see us come in with a balanced budget. Now, again, the numbers Pat's talking about there were through the end of this year, and I had asked Pat yesterday what the likelihood would be come January 1 that we would hit the original budget target that gave us, again, a much less deficit in the recreation area. I think, Pat, you had said that was about 50%.
Yeah, but I can only deal with the numbers of people that I have right now. I'm not gonna lie to you guys and say I'm gonna have another 15 kids, because I don't know. I can give you numbers based on what we have right now, and I expect to get more days on these kids coming back, and expect to get more kids at the program, because some of the parents that took their kids out said, when things go back to normal, we will come back. And that was approximately 10 kids. So, but I don't know for sure if that's still the case. I mean, they say they want to come back, and that would bump it up probably 20,000, 15, 20,000, which would put me almost right where I was before.
Now,
So Pat, how many kids are you expecting come September?
19. Wait.
And that's with the 2 that just left?
Hold on one second.
Okay. Because that number sounds higher than what I think you told us.
Yeah, because
last
originally
Wednesday.
it was like 22, and that's when I said it would be 50% more starting in January if we added the days to the present people that are in it now. I didn't add the other 10 people that took their kids out completely because they're home with their kids. They say they want to come back, but I don't know. Actually, there's 16 kids in it right now. Yep.
And that's minus the 2 that are moving to Honey
No,
Falls?
yes,
or
that's
was it
already
really
taking
14?
those 2 out, yes. Yep.
Okay. Because we already talked about that you were already going to be 3,000, we thought, in the hole for
Yeah,
September
this will
to
take me around 5.
December.
Yeah.
So now we're looking at more like 5.
Yep.
And then if we're looking at a 29,000, potentially based on what we're looking at for 2021, we're up to almost 34.
But I don't think it's going to be like that in 2021. And this is the hard part for me, is that my numbers look awful looking at them right now. But if things do go back to normal in January and I do get the kids back, it will be it'll be different. It'll be a lot more.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
I know.
It'll be closer
No
to
one
the
has
numbers.
a crystal ball.
Yeah.
Pat, I like your optimism. I tend to be optimistic myself, but when we think about 21, I get very concerned because of, for example, Dr. Mendoza's statement yesterday about the flu season this year, which will go into 21 being severe, and also the popping up, the resurgence of COVID cases that are happening all over. And oh my gosh, I worry about what would happen if that came here. We're lucky so far because I think for the most part, our population has been following the orders of, or not the orders, but the requests of the governor and the medical officials. But what would happen if we saw a resurgence here? It wouldn't be a pretty sight. And I worry about that.
Well, I went to a meeting at the district and we're going to follow the district protocols. We're all on the same page. We're all doing the same thing. The only difference is that I have to have different types of hand sanitizer and everything than we have at the town, because the ones at the town have alcohol in them. So I need to have antibacterial hand stuff and wipes and stuff that do not have the alcohol. It's more of a child friendly. So I did ask Rick Tracy for that. But you know, we had a lengthy meeting with the district, and we all know what we have to do. I've sent letters out to the parents of what we're going to do and how it's going to work. So that's all been covered, and that's all set. We're all set with that. But I don't know, Jerry. I can't tell what the future's going to be. I mean, we took a blow in March, and you know, it's been hard to recover. It's really, really difficult. Parents are still home with their kids. I would say 50% of our kids, the parents are still home with them and they're working from home. You know, it makes no sense to send them to after school if they're home with their kids.
That could become the new norm.
Well, if they go back to school 5 days a week, it gives the parents, then there'll be a push for them to be able to go back in the office. Obviously, if we do have a vaccine and parents can go back 5 days a week, I'm sure it's going to be much more productive in their workforce if they do go back. But yeah, I can't look in the future that far. I don't know. All I can go by is what I've heard, what the school's looking to do. I wasn't encouraged until the school said they're hoping in January to go back to their normal 5 days a week. Amber, is that what you've heard from Livonia too?
No, that's not what I've heard.
Victoria, you haven't heard that either?
No,
What have you guys heard?
Our principal's planning on it being like this for at least this school year, if not additional school years.
Really? Which school are you in, Victoria?
Brighton.
Ah. Amber, what's Livonia say? What's their
Well, Livonia is in a huge budget crunch with the, reduction in state aid. It's been a very stressful few days. We're back full-time, but they're anticipating at a moment's notice will either be all virtual or hybrid.
Okay.
So Pat, you're on the tentative budget 2021 total revenues 44,360 versus 2020 your amended was 84. So it's not quite 50%. So is the reduction coming? Why are you changing that?
Well, it was like 22 something. and then Dan asked me to look at if it was, what percentage would it be more if in January we were able to go back to somewhat of a normal state with the number of kids I have now. So this is like the worst case scenario. What you are seeing right now is like, if what I have goes back to, 5 days a week, but I'm expecting some kids to come back if, things get better in January. But I don't know, folks. Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
I know what you're saying.
So you're saying, so Pat, you're saying total revenue for 2021 is based on the 16 kids you have right now continuing, but going full-time? No?
Dan, do you have my
I
other
don't
sheet?
Yeah, this is the original budget that was put
Right.
together. Okay, and let me go
I
down a
want to see
page.
the most current one. Yeah.
Okay, the most current
Okay,
one
so
is,
look at the,
this
Yeah.
is the most,
I
this
want
is most
that one.
current.
Yep.
Okay, this
That's
is
the one
what,
I Yep.
this is what was done since last Wednesday that Pat put together.
Yep.
This is the original budget. And we had shown 93,000 in revenue. Bottom line number was 1989. Let me throw out a couple of quick comments for you, Amber, and Dan, and for Jerry. Again, as we develop the budget, one of the primary purposes for developing the budget, obviously, is to identify what the property tax amount for next year is going to be. Obviously, if we budget based on the original, the impact is substantially less on the property tax than it is if we changed it to these numbers here. And that difference is about 2% in property tax. So just to keep that in the back of your mind. I think there's a strong need to try to maintain the property tax line for next year, given what all taxpayers have had to go through. So if the long and the short is that if we adopt a budget along these lines, then we got to come up with $27,000 of cuts elsewhere or income coming from other sources. And I can tell you that's not a very simple task, because generally speaking, the budgets that the town of Rush has had are relatively bare bones. There's not lots of flexibility. It's not like we can cut staff. We don't, we're practically everybody is part-time as it is. You're not going to cut, the electric bill or the gas bill. So you don't have tremendous flexibilities in areas that you can do some things. There are discretionary areas, but it would be extremely difficult to try to find $27,000 somewhere else when where we are now. Now, saying all that, Amber, Dan, and Jerry, one of the suggestions I might throw your direction is to adopt the budget based on the original numbers. That would assume Pat would be going back to full schedule come January, and we don't know. But then let's suppose we get into January, February, and those numbers we don't meet them. When that if and when that would happen, we don't go back to the taxpayers and say, taxpayers, we're going to raise your taxes now in mid-year. Obviously, that is set. It's set based on the adopted budget that we're going through today, in the next couple of months here. What would happen is that if we didn't meet those income targets and so on, is that we'd have to dip into the unexpended fund balance. Not the end of the world. And certainly there is more than adequate unexpended fund balance available. But what that does do is allows us a little less pressure on trying to find other cuts for next year. We want to be realistic, but at this point, we don't know. And so, I throw that out. And again, it is up to you as board members to decide. We don't know. We can budget on the basis that we will be come January 1 at full staff.
Dan, Dan, I'll stop you right there, because I'm not on board for that.
Okay.
So I'm not.
Okay.
I
That's
am
fine.
very,
That's fine. I just throw that out, Amber, so that you
Mhm.
understand that you have that as an option in front of you. And if we don't do that,
Mhm.
then we do within the operating plan that we're coming up with now. We'll have to look for other areas that we can cut or other areas that we can provide funding to the budget if our objective is to keep the property taxes level.
Yeah, I want to chime in here and support Amber, because the reason that this got changed, we went from last week's figure to this week's figure, is because the board last week wasn't totally comfortable with the figures that had been presented.
That's
And
fine.
that's,
Yep.
and that's how we got to where we are today. And we, you know, I don't want to lean unnecessarily hard on that unexpended fund balance. At the same time, I don't want to get into a situation where we've got to raise taxes.
Yeah, yeah.
And we don't want to look in the rearview mirror and say, oh my God, why did we do that?
Nope. And that's something that, again, is you know, again, all I'm doing is I wanted to make sure you understand what your options could be if you went one direction or the other. At the end of the day, again, obviously, it's the choice. You know, you all have to decide. Again, we go down this, you know, this path. Excuse me. Get the right other budget back up here. Then we will be looking for $27,000 additional coming from somewhere.
Well,
Dan, can
And
you?
that's just to get us back to the $197,000 deficit that we started with.
because my department
Dan, where do you? Sorry, Pat. Dan, where do you get 27,000? I see 29.
Okay,
156.
29. Right, it's the difference between that number, Amber, and the
Oh,
night.
and the previous last week's. Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Okay,
now
Yep.
the 93,000 that you guys see, we had changed. Dan and I had increased the after school cost by I think 5%. So that's why you see such a large jump in the, you know, the budget for 2021 and 2020. That's why there was such a big jump. It went from 84 to 93 because we had increased it, and that was before the COVID hit. But folks, honestly, I've been self-sufficient for 20 years. My department has not had to use hardly any tax money at all, and this is the first time. But I can't control it. I can't control what the district has set forth. But I'd rather be honest with you and tell you exactly what's going on instead of give you some line that it's not going to actually happen. And then, I don't know, I'm just trying to be as honest as I can, but I foresee things getting much, much better unless we get hit with the COVID thing again, and then everything would freeze. And what would happen then, Dan? With the budget is what happens if COVID happens again and we all have to.
again, if you're obviously, you know, if it gets worse, you're budgeting at these, at the reduced level already, Pat. Again,
I
you may
know.
miss, you know, if you miss that target, obviously, you're in the same scenario that we are talking for 2020. You're not going to hit your budget targets, and you know, invariably it goes into unfunded, unexpended fund balance, you know, and or other sources of income or reduction in expenses in other areas. And that's something that we touched on last week. At this point, we think we're going to be in pretty good shape for 2020, even with everything that has gone on. We are seeing some reductions in income, but there's some substantial reductions in cost as well that more than offset that. So at this moment, you know, 2020 is the same. But what if we don't hit the target? You know, if this, you know, if you don't get 44 up here and this negative 29 becomes negative 40, that's got to come from somewhere, obviously. And the last
Let's not think that way.
and the last place would be unexpended fund balance for tonight. For you know, for what we're doing tonight, and you know what we're doing now is to develop a budget that we will go to the go to and approve, and then establish the property tax base for the coming year. I will incorporate these, based on what I'm hearing, I will incorporate these numbers that you see here into the overall budget model. And, we'll see where the number, at the end of the day, where the numbers come out.
Because this is
Realistically,
nothing,
go ahead.
because this is nothing more than a turkey shoot, what would happen if we hedged our bet and went in the midpoint?
That's what I was going to say. I think realistically, it's going to fall between Pat's original numbers and her updated numbers.
Yeah.
It'll be somewhere in the middle. We're not going to be looking at 27. We're going to be looking at something less.
It won't be as bad as it is, but it will be better. It won't be as good as what we had originally planned.
Yeah.
Pat, would you like?
Remember, we're already using 3,000 in the 2020 budget that we agreed to allow the program to continue. And now I think Pat said with losing 2 more kids, was that an additional $2,000, Pat?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're looking at a deficit of $5,000 now just this year in 2020. And I'm not trying to be the bad guy. I'm just trying to be the
No,
realist.
I understand, but at least we've been able to make up for the pavilion. I mean, we don't talk about that at all. It's not in my budget. But 90% of my time last month was spent on the pavilion. Jerry called me today and asked me about that. But yeah, we did, it's back on track where it was before even COVID started. So I wish I could show those numbers because that would really help.
Dan, why is recreation in blue under the 2021 column?
Okay, right here?
Yeah.
That's the personnel cost, Amber.
Is that why it's in blue?
Well,
I just wondered why it was in blue.
Okay, in my budget model, it's for me that if we do any cost of living adjustment, there's a formula in this cell that, let's say we did a 1% adjustment.
I got you.
It'll go to everybody's budget and automatically update it. Okay,
Thank you.
that's all it is.
Okay.
Dan, is there any way you could press the Zoom button a couple more times for me, please?
Okay, Zoom to.
Just that little plus sign.
Nope, not that one, this one?
Yep.
How's that?
Okay, perfect. That's good.
All right. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, so am I hearing that that the board, you would like to see another revision to these numbers that would be something in between the original budget, which was 93,000, and then of course some costs down below, and the 44,000. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think that's more
comfortable
realistic.
with that.
Okay, Pat, can you do something like that and then feed me some numbers, and then I will put that in the model. And then when we have the workshop come next Wednesday, I'll just let the board know what the impact of those numbers is.
Okay.
I didn't hear Amber agree with us, and that's important.
She's shaking her head no.
She's
No, I
shaking her.
didn't. I'm taking it in. I don't have a decision yet. Sorry.
Well, then you could have one by next week.
Yep.
Good.
Okay.
Pat, if you would work up some numbers anyhow.
Sure.
Okay, then I'll have it available.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Pat.
I'm
You're
sorry.
welcome, Pat.
Thank you.
Bye, Pat.
Pat, it's
Bye.
not. Pat, it's the world we find ourselves in.
I know.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Pat. All right, this, by the way, was is the schedule that we have, or the individual departmental budgets that we're looking at tonight. I would probably let Sue Me go next. Hers is a smaller budget, and that way we don't keep Sue all evening. Sue, if you would want to go ahead and start, I'll get your budget up on the screen.
What page number?
It should be
56
page
to 59.
56.
And Jerry, please go next.
Go to page 56, Jerry, and I have it up on the screen now.
Got it.
And again, and this is the, as we look at the overall budget, here we go. Again, the requested or tentative budget that in essence that Sue is asking for would be a total of $25,093. Compare that to $14,073 that's in the 2020. So it is up $11,020. And Sue, if you want to address that.
Yes, it's actually this is pretty much the same request I made last year. The difference in what was approved and what I have submitted this year is an estimate for repairing the West Rush Rotzel Road Cemetery. I had submitted that last year, and the board did not approve it, but I was told at that time to resubmit it again with my budget request for this year. Of course, I understand now that, you know, with the pandemic, this is not an optimal year for asking that. The reason I have submitted it last year and again this year is the cemetery headstones, it's an old cemetery, are in poor condition. A lot of them need repair. And as a historian, I just feel that it's our responsibility to maintain these cemeteries more than, you know, the state requires an inactive cemetery be mowed. And that is done regularly by our town highway department. But, you know, of course, over time, a lot of these headstones have fallen, broken, they're in disrepair. And Pine Hill is not an inactive cemetery, but I was able to get grant funding through the New York State Division of Cemeteries to repair that cemetery, 2 different grants. So that's in really good shape. We have had, the town did award in 2017 funding through my budget request to repair the headstones in the Honey Eye Falls Road number 6 cemetery. A Boy Scout project, Eagle Project, repaired the headstones in the cemetery right in town next to Chase's. So the next one on the list was the Rotzel Road Cemetery, and that's why you're seeing it again as well. I guess Jerry saw it last year and Dan. So that's why I have resubmitted it. You know, like I said, I certainly do understand that it may not be feasible this year, again, because of the current situation that we are in. But I wanted to submit it just for consideration to see if it would be possible. Other than that, my standing request is pretty much the same as it has been the last couple of years. The equipment request, Amber had asked me about that. That actually was a standing amount before I even became historian. I don't know standing amount, but it had been in there for a couple of years. What I had planned for this year, as far as next year, 2021, as far as equipment, is I would like to buy a higher speed photo scanner to digitize more of what's already in the collection so that it can be more easily shared, can be posted, and it preserves, you know, a form of preserving those old print documents. And I do have a scanner, but it's kind of slow, very slow, if you're going to be doing large quantities of scanning. So I had thought, but when I've priced those out, and I do, I have questions out to a couple of my IT friends for their input, but it looks like I could get something for probably closer to $600 or $700. So wouldn't necessarily need that full 1,500. So if it were put in the budget, would probably end up returning a portion of it, or could downsize that request from the get-go. I don't know, does anyone have any questions? And I've tried to itemize what each of those categories would encompass as far as expenses. So research and access is the historian's website. Subscriptions to Ancestry.com, newspaper.com, the New York Genealogical and Biographical Society, and some other like Western New York Heritage Magazine, just some subscription resources that are helpful in conducting research and staying on top of information. And then my second category is membership and conference fees. And those are just primarily local or regional memberships pertaining to history. And then preservation and collection. So archival supplies, cost of framing, printing, and I like to allow some for collection development because I regularly scan eBay or other things to see if things pertaining to Rush come up, and I have been able to purchase a few little treasures over the last few years to add to our collection. So that without taking the cemetery out of it, my budget request is 3820. And then, of course, the cemetery restoration work is the bulk of that, and that's the additional 11,000.
Sue, this is Jerry.
Hi.
There's no doubt that when the board made the suggestions they made last year, they had no idea about the pandemic, none whatsoever.
Yep.
And I don't have to tell you that, you know that.
Right.
And you probably read my email that I sent out that said, I don't think anything is more important than our continuation to provide the services we've provided and maintain the assets of the town.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the two major things that are getting in the way of that are, yeah, the pandemic, but we also have a 100% commitment to repair the library roof, which has escalated beyond reality because it's been left to go so long. So, you know, I don't want to be thought of as the boogeyman, but we only have so many dollars to go around, and you know, I'm not gonna go out on a limb and say, gee, Sue, back off this year and put it in next year, because I don't know what next year is gonna bring.
Perfectly understandable.
And you heard me say that to Pat, because we're already nervous and jerky about what's gonna happen come next year with the rec budget and the after-school care and et cetera. So I would like, and I hope the other board members agree with me, I would like to see the equipment reduction down to 600, and I'd like to see the Rotzel Road rehab completely erased for this year, and without a commitment to put them back in next year. We've got to wait till next year to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I completely understand. Yeah, as long as you don't get tired of me popping it back in as a request in future years.
No, not at all.
And maybe with any luck, it could, parts of it become a potential Eagle Scout project, or Mark has said before, it might be something that they could possibly help with too. So,
well, we do have an obligation to preserve our heritage, and that certainly is part of it. So, you know, coming back 2, 3, 4 times, hopefully you don't have to, but I won't be offended.
Okay, I'm persistent.
And
I'm fine with that.
I appreciate your understanding this year.
No, these are unusual times, and we have to really be careful and prioritize the funding and the needs. So absolutely, it's understandable.
Other board members?
I think we should just leave that number on that scanner a little bit higher than 600. Sue was saying 6 or 7 is probably, she might be able to get one. We should give her a little play.
I can't debate over 100.
Pardon?
I can't debate over 100. That's fine.
Good.
We take it to 700? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And this is Amber, and if for everyone who is watching our workshop, can Dan and Jerry, can you explain to us why you didn't approve it last year? Why did the town board not approve the purchase last year? Do you remember the reason at all? For the
Cost.
Cemetery repair?
Cost.
Yeah.
Well, there were 2 things in my mind. I agree with Dan. Cost was one, But the other thing was, and I'm almost ashamed to admit this, but the condition of the Russell Road Cemetery this year is significantly worse than it was last year. And when I looked at it last year and I saw the amount proposed for the rehab, I said, it can't be. This year, that figure is very realistic considering the damage. We had one of the, two of the three largest trees in there go down and do a lot of additional damage, not only to the turf around it, but to the stones around it also. So, you know, Sue's request to do this is valid, as valid as the day is long. It's just this pandemic and library considerations that make it very difficult to approve that this year.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Any other questions?
No, thank you, Sue, for getting me the information on the high-speed scanner. That was very helpful.
Sure. Yeah, so the one I'm looking at is actually an Epson Fast Photo. I just, I'm waiting to hear back, and Chris wouldn't be ordering it right, obviously, until next year, but waiting to hear back from a couple of my IT coworkers for their opinions. So it might not be that exact model, but I think that'll be the price range.
Are those, is that equipment, are those prices negotiable or are they pretty well set?
Well, though that was the price that I had looked at was from Staples, but I also looked at Amazon and Best Buy, and they were all pretty, you know, pretty equivalent.
So you're open to price searching.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
If you would, Sue, send me the model of that equipment you're looking for in an email.
Okay. Do you want me to send it to everyone or just you?
Well, you can send it to everyone just so everybody's aware, but
Okay.
I'm asking for a specific reason.
Okay. Okay. Will do.
Okay, so that, just to summarize briefly, what we're looking at is to change the equipment number here from $1,500 down to $700, and the contractual will go from $14,820 to $3,820. If that's what everybody understands, that's what I'll build into the budget model.
That's my understanding.
Yep.
Amber? Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Sue, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll sign out.
Thank you, Sue.
Have a good
Okay.
night,
Bye,
everyone.
Sue.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's see. We did that. Why don't we go to Pam with the clerk's budget? Just going down through the list here. Pam, if you're ready.
All right, so we're on page 89.
89, it's going to be 88 in your, your worksheets, begin on page 89.
Okay.
And maybe before you start, I can summarize overall how they compare. Again, as we're looking at the various categories that are in the town clerk budget, the revenue or the income areas, we're looking at a slight decrease from $32,580 that was in the 2020 amended budget, going down to $30,700. That is primarily dog licenses, it looks like. And again, that's probably even where it is, maybe a bit generous based on what the history has shown us so far. In the area of expenses, again, the payroll is slightly, is a bit different, which Pam will go into. That includes, it'll be herself and the deputy town clerk and some clerical support for building, I believe. And again, equipment is stagnant, and the contractual is actually showing that it's going down from 42,546 to 39,800. The primary driver of that one is actually in the town clerk budget. It's last year 13,460, next year budgeting 11,120. The overall impact, as we look at it, last year's impact on the overall budget was that it required $105,000, 169. Next year, based on what is being presented, would be 107,339. So, Pam, it's all yours.
Uh,
Okay,
Could I interrupt just a minute, please? What was last year, 109?
Last year, it was,
107.
well, it was, that's next year. That's next year. Last year, the amended budget was 105, 169.
Yeah.
So we're going up to 107.
Yeah, we're adding about $2,200 net adjustment. And again, that's really going to be picked up in one category that wasn't budgeted for before. And Pam, it's back to you. I've got it on page 9.
what was that, Dan?
Yeah, it's on you now. We're on
Okay.
page 89.
All right, so the personnel services in 1410, I did budget for the deputy town clerk to, I included a merit in there. I started her at a step 2 based on discussions with Jerry. And I wanted to start at step 3, but we decided to go with step 2. So I have included that merit in there. She does do the planning and zoning as well, so that is included in there as the $1,026. What Dan, I think, was referring to before with the additional couple thousand was what we were not including in was the 2.5 hours for a meeting. What we had to backtrack with that because of the non-pay for the planning and zoning meetings. So I think that's what the difference was. And I've also included, I talked to the current building inspector, and what we did budget for buildings and customer service for the building department, in lieu of not hiring another clerk in that area, was putting in a partial into that, because we do supply support for that department when he is not there. And I think he has talked to the supervisor in that regard. Going down to equipment, I've put in $200 in there just as a catch-all, although my laptop died at our last meeting, so I'm not positive if that should be raised a little bit higher, because that is going to be needed. Instead of using my personal laptop for the Zoom.
Yeah, hey Pam, to interrupt, would you be
Yes.
replacing the laptop in 2020 then?
It depends if I can get it restarted. I'm talking to Jeff about it right now.
Okay, I mean, you know, because if we're going to resolve that in 2020, then we don't need to impact the 21 budget for that.
Okay. Let me discuss it then with Jeff at Pinpoint and see
Okay.
where we're at. For the dues for the contractuals, they're just the standard ones for Monroe County, for the New York State town clerks, and for tax receivers. That's just the annual dues that we are required to pay if we're part of those associations, which is beneficial. Then we go to the general code, the normal annual maintenance fees. We did get it, the $1,350 provided to us ahead of time, so I could include that into my budget. Updates to the town code are dependent on the local laws adoption. Right now, I have 3 local laws that I've proposed in November and July to the town board for approval so that they could be supplemented. This $1,000 may be low depending on if we're going to be doing additional local laws, but I'm not positive where the town board is with that. Is there any idea Right now, we're looking at 17 to 2,200, I think, on the current local laws that I'm trying to supplement. But I haven't had any feedback from any of the town board members.
Pam, it's Amber. You made a statement, you have 3 local laws. Is that in 2020 or you're anticipating for 2021?
No, there's currently one for 2017, 2019. There's 2, I believe, and 2020 is one. So that's
would
the
that come
information
out of-
Pardon?
Would that come out of the 3,000 in the 2020 budget?
Yeah, I have 2,000 in the 2020 budget that will cover the cost of that, but it needs to be approved first, so I don't want to carry it over.
Okay.
But the anticipation of any additional local law, should I include that $1,000 in there, or should I increase it or decrease it? Generally, I do put $1,000 in the budget.
2021 will probably see a battery moratorium law passed. So that would be one.
Well, that's one of the ones that's in the 2020, included in what I've already submitted.
Okay.
So Pam, so in the 2020 budget, you budgeted 20 or 3,000. So can't you just pay for those 3 laws once the town board approves it? And then you're saying that's what you're waiting for us to do?
Right.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
So there
Yeah,
has
we
to
need
be,
to do that.
Yes.
there doesn't have to be a provision for that in the 21 budget if we pass it in 20. Is that my
Well,
understanding?
that's true for these
Pam's-
local, true for these local laws, but what I'm saying is if you change in 2021, if you change if we pass any local laws in 2021, they may just sit there in 2021 and not be codified. They'll be supplements, so they'll be on E-code, available for the residents, but they won't actually be within the code. They have to be codified. So leave $1,000 in just in case.
Well, based on my understanding of what you just said, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on into the RPS syncing with the building department. That's the integrated property services and the RPS system from Monroe County Office of Real Properties. It syncs with, when a deed comes in to Monroe County, it syncs with our IPS system, so we have the most up-to-date property owners. Without that, our IPS system is not updated unless we physically do it one by one.
And what's the cost? Where's the cost for that?
That syncs for the 200. Oh, that 240 is in there beginning. That must be synced in with the IPS update. That must be in the building department, the $180.
Well, it would be foolish to do it one by one if you can get the whole batch done for 180.
That's what it is, 180 to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So leave it there, yes.
Okay, so then there's the business automation services that we have right now for all the systems that we have now that talk together. Those are just the general annual fees that we're paying to keep the operations of the offices running. Those we've talked to different vendors at different times. I know that John Limbeck has talked about the different systems that we use, but as we've talked to different vendors at different conventions, that's generally what other towns throughout the county use. It's one of the better systems and they all talk together. So those are just standard there. The legal notices right now, I'm not sure about that we have an affidavit fee that's required now that's $25 for each legal notice fee. So I'm just checking into that with other towns to see what they're doing. because that's gone up by $20 each.
Wow.
So that's the $2,800 that we do for the legal notices. And right now, we do use the Post is the only, that is our paper. So that is the circulation. That's really our only option. The comprehensive plan I've always put in. Last year, I put it in on recommendations of the supervisor to include solar in there. So we have $1,000 from this year to include into the comprehensive plan as far as copying and doing revisions. Do you want me to keep that included in there?
Yes.
You're talking about the 1993 comprehensive plan?
Right.
And if the comprehensive plan hasn't been updated, why would solar be put in it if it hasn't been approved by the town to update the comprehensive plan?
Well, that's what I'm putting in for like I'm saying that if we got 10 copies of it once it was updated, should I keep that in there or take it out? Is there anywhere else in the town budget the comprehensive plan updates is included?
Well, I guess my question is, we were looking into a subcommittee to update the comprehensive plan, but that hasn't moved forward yet. So why are we paying potentially $1,000 a year to update a comprehensive plan that a committee and the town board has not approved it being updated?
Oh, I'm not paying anything for it. I'm just including that in it for copies of it if we were to update it and get it in production. That would be under my contractual for copying type of thing.
Great. So if the comprehensive plan were to be updated within the next 14 months, it would cost you $1,000 to make 10 copies at $100 a copy.
Yeah, I'm just averaging it.
Okay. Yep, I understand it now.
For the Gould's update, that's the all of our local laws, or not our local laws, our state laws. Those are the blue books that we have on all our laws. That's just a general $540. We have to update those. That's required. As far as mileage goes, we are doing the banking, bringing in cash. If we have cash, we're doing all our banking for checks in-house. So we can do that, but we do the deposits for the town clerk's office, Monroe County Treasury when it has to go to their bank, to the school district when it has to go to their bank, and of course the finance and the library. Nameplates, I just put in a generic $60. Newsletter, there's no cost. Notary fees, both Shelley and I right now, we are both, do not have expired terms, so we're good with that. Office supplies, non-routine specific, which means something non-routine specific for my department. Say, we do need extra printing supplies for a copier or one of our printers. So I just put $100 in there just for this year I got, it wasn't $100, but this year I did get some voice depleting headphones for the deputy. Seminars last year, I didn't go to any conferences. And so that $2,100 was in for last year. We didn't use it. And I'm keeping it in there for now for certification, just like the planning and zoning board members have to do their hours to order keep their recognition on their boards. That is what I'm doing to keep my status in those areas.
Pam, are you required by a local or state law to do that? I know planning and zoning are, but I didn't think elected officials or the town clerk.
I'm not required, but as a town clerk to keep up my status.
Oh, no, I agree.
Yeah, it's just an educational thing, and you have to submit points in order to keep that status.
Okay.
It's not required, it's just
Right, okay.
professional thing. Elections, those are come and go. The elections inspectors, we pay them, and then the Monroe County reimburses us. So that's just back and forth. That will come in and go out. Records management. I've done a lot of scanning of the building files so that we can have those of access in case at some point we lose them. We will still have them. We have them scanned. We have them scanned into Laserfiche. And Laserfiche was also something that I had to use when we had the fire in the vault. So part of the files are only on Laserfiche. And I'm continuing with that because it's easier to retrieve the building permits that we have to keep forever. So that $1,200 is in there. Central storeroom, $2,100 is just what I've put in. It's basically for all the departments. They utilize that, and we have a list written down so that we get the cheapest, best priced on things that we do need for the office supplies. And all the departments use that, other than the library has their own budget, and the court itself uses their own budget to do that. The bulk mailing permit has gone up, goes up every year. That's something we pay for sending out our newsletter. Postage, we have postage machine and the copier machine. Those are all under contract that have not expired yet. And those are just payments that we have. Same thing with the meter supplies. That's just the ink and stuff that we need for the getting the stamp machine filled. And charter, the cable contractual, we got $1,000. As far as revenues, clerk license fees for marriage and DEC. I haven't done a lot of marriage licenses. We have not a lot of young people in Rush. That's dropped dramatically year after year. And the DEC, this year I almost decided, other than the service to our customers and our residents, we get about $400 a year. That's it, for doing all of the work in supplying fishing and hunting licenses from New York State. Interest on taxes, or this year was $17,000, and hopefully this won't drop too much. Last year it dropped a little bit because of the county executive reducing the penalties and the percentages on the different installments, but thankfully I was in the office collecting them so that we weren't too far behind on that. And a lot of people did pay their taxes, full tax, ahead of time, so we didn't get that. The interest wasn't lagging behind. Dues and taxes only. Yes.
I apologize. Could you explain again what the election reimbursement is?
The election inspectors are paid. The Board of Elections sets their pay. We pay them, and then I create a bill, send it to Monroe County Board of Elections, and they reimburse us.
Here's another one of those unknowns created by our friend, the COVID. They predict that mail-in ballots are going to be big. That's what I've heard. Don't know if that's true, because so many people are concerned about going where there's a crowd and they don't want to be exposed. What would a significant reduction or a significant increase in mail-in ballots due to that?
Well, the county is going to have a cost of sending out those ballots and having a return envelope, stamped return envelope. So that's going to be reflected in our town and county taxes. But as far as election day, the number of election inspectors required, it's not going to change whether there's going to be mail-in ballots or not. You're going to still have the same number of election inspectors to handle the different districts.
And as I understand, Pam, again, that's an in and out anyhow. Whatever
Correct.
Whatever cost you have is just reimbursed by the county. And so Jerry, that shows in the revenue area up above as your elections income, and it'll show down below here as an elections expense. So if the numbers go, instead of 5,000, if it were 3,000, then it'd be 3 and 3. It's still a net zero.
Right.
Thank you.
It's
Okay.
and it's 5,000 this year because it is a presidential election, so it's going to be a little bit higher. Where am I going back to? I'm going back to Games of Chance. This year we didn't get our $30 because we didn't have a carnival. So that's going to just stay in there, in and out. Dog licenses, they have gone up because we did collect them over COVID time, and people did supply their fees. So we did collect them. So it has gone up sort of regular as usual. But I project that it's going to be a little bit less this coming year. I know that the dog control officers have talked to Supervisor QC about going to the homes that have not paid their licensing fees and they're backlogged, but I'm not positive if he has said go ahead and knock on their doors or just leave it be.
Well, I haven't said go ahead and knock on the doors, but I didn't say leave it be. I said let it go for a little longer to see what happens. We may end up going to knock on doors.
Okay. But for the most part, I think people they've been calling, they don't want to see themselves in court, so they want to pay for their little dog, make sure that it's going to be licensed. So they've been paying. As far as minor sales, books and everything, that is generally about 150, 120. I put it a little bit less because most people get things now. We email a lot to people. And I think I've gone over everything. Does anyone have questions?
Dan, could you go back up to the deputy clerk and clerk allocations, please?
This area here?
Yes.
Okay.
Where I saw something here.
Now, what this includes for the deputy clerk was a step adjustment, as Pam had indicated. And again, there's a cost in there because by law we do have to pay, I think it's a minimum 2 hours for any meeting that the deputy clerk would be there. She is an hourly based employee. And then there's $4,000 for the support for the building inspector, Pam?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. As I'm thinking about this, why is there not an allocation for the code enforcement officer?
I thought he talked to you about him not having a clerk. You took that out of his budget?
Well, what I'm thinking about is, yeah, that's all true. But what I'm thinking about is, what if somebody comes to the counter and takes the time of the deputy or even yourself on a code enforcement issue? You don't just say, go away, he's not here.
Well, code enforcement issues, anyone that calls for Rick it's usually just someone that calls and we email him.
Okay. And the breakdown for the 4,000 for the building inspector, is that up here? I don't see it.
That is, Dan, I think
you just added that into this number here, the 5,027. So if you're looking, comparing to 2020 to 2021, that increase primarily is due to providing support for the building inspector. Am I right, Pam?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, John is projected, basically, it's going to continue to grow basically because the building department has really not slowed down due to COVID. A lot of people are doing additional work because they are home. So we are getting a lot of calls and we are doing a lot of permits and interaction, phone calls and emails.
I don't know why, but I'm having a little angst over that, but let's not stop because of my angst. We'll move on.
No, no, it's Amber. I'd like to comment on that as well. I am not in favor of additional $4,000 for a building inspector clerk assistant, as well as I'll be seen as the person that seems to be saying no to many things. That from March, April, May, we were closed. We provided as a town board to our town employees full pay. And many people worked from home, many people couldn't, but the town board was very mindful of that. And I do not feel comfortable with a merit step increase in the time of COVID, when we will see our senior citizens potentially having trouble paying for their school taxes, with school taxes potentially going up. And I just think this given year that we are finding ourselves now and moving into, we just have to hold the line on where things were currently from 20 to 2021. So I'm not in favor, I'm sorry, Shelley, of the step increase. Again, new to this, as well as I'm not in favor of the building inspector for the additional $4,000. I also, down on the comprehensive plan, I know when the deputy supervisor had started that subcommittee, and she did a lot of her research, and she shared with us, and I believe there were many other comments, that to get a comprehensive plan done within a year's time frame was not going to happen. So I think we also could remove that $1,000 down under the contractual of that comprehensive plan, 10 copies at $100 a piece. Those were, I believe, my comments.
So
Thank you for reminding us of that conversation, Amber.
will there be a merit increase for the other department clerks that are included in the budget? And
What other clerk is that?
I believe there are a couple other clerks that have an
you
increased
mean,
step.
I thought you mean in the building. You're not talking about in your area.
Not in my area, no.
Right. We have
And-
not discussed that yet. I do believe we will have a discussion.
And as far as the support and the customer service going to the building department, will that be totally sole of the building inspector?
Part of my uncertainty in this is I was told by the recently departed, well, he hasn't departed, but the recent building inspector and the newly acquired building inspector, it was their opinion that clerical support was really an option, not a requirement. That was a month or so ago. I have not revisited that with either of them. And I'm trying to think about the appropriateness of factoring this into your budget, having been told what they told me a month ago. And I just don't feel comfortable about it
What are the building inspector's hours?
at
And
this point.
20 hours a week.
are they pretty well established? So if I were coming in for a building permit, I know when he would be there? Or is it kind of like a crapshoot?
He does have established hours written on a board and he puts them up every week,
Okay.
but we assist whenever he's not there.
Is there a lot of assisting?
I think that would be better asked to John.
Okay.
Pam, the only other thing, you said you were going to check for your laptop, right? To
Right.
see if that can be, and then you get back to us, so we know
Right.
about that $200, okay.
One of the other
Otherwise, we don't.
one of the other considerations I just wanted to, I don't know if the board has thought about this or not, but dealing with the Zoom meetings and the use of personal equipment and the lack of equipment in the town hall that can assist us in having a microphone and having a visual. There's next to null in the town hall that can assist us if we are going to go virtual in that respect, other than people using their personal. I know myself, I have a personal laptop at home. My deputy has been using her personal iPad. So if we have a conflict and we need that assistance, I think the town should think about that in the future, for this coming future, if that is something that we're going to continue doing.
Well, I think my preference for the future has been stated, and that is I would like to, for the convenience of the residents, continue with a Zoom platform indefinitely into the future. But even that would happen, I prefer that to happen, even if we get to a point where we can assemble live time in the town hall meeting room. I would like to make sure that we can provide both opportunities for residents who want to attend a board meeting. And it seems to me that buying any additional equipment, now I could be wrong, so I'd like people to tell me if you think I am, buying any additional equipment right now until we are more certain about our lifetime meetings, buying additional equipment now is not the appropriate thing to do. Dan, Amber, do you have an opinion on that?
I think if we're going to do Zoom meetings, then the town should be able to support us doing it. I mean, it shouldn't be up to the individuals on the different boards to bring their own equipment to the town hall, I don't think.
Well, I think
we're going to have to start thinking about supplying the town hall if we're going to move forward with the Zoom platform.
I think Victoria supervisor, the deputy supervisor, should speak to that, because we've heard her with her experience explaining to us, and maybe not tonight at the workshop, but Victoria, I don't know if she's there, but the
Yes,
Zoom
I'm here.
platform.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
she's not off the hook with me. I was going to her next.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt. Pam, I completely agree with you, and I appreciate your support with that. I think, I honestly don't know where it would fall in the budget. But that is one thing that I noticed when I came aboard, the lack of supplies, if you will, for all of our elected officials and or appointed officials on all of the boards. So I definitely agree with you, Pam, on that one for sure. We've discussed in the past and throughout this situation that we're experiencing, some sort of laptop cart system, like a rental system through the library, where, you know, I could rent it for a Tuesday night then I put it back, then I rent it, then somebody else can rent it for a Wednesday night, that type of system, so nobody's taking them out. So we've thought about that, and there'll be enough in this, cart system for everybody to share. So I definitely agree with that, Pam. I couldn't agree more. Additionally, we've talked about many different nuances of technology, whether it be the microphones. We've talked about those a lot. We've talked about earphones a lot as well, more than I think we'd all like to talk about. We've talked about Zoom a lot more than I think any one of us ever dreamed of. Zoom, again, it still would not be my recommendation moving forward that we use Zoom as a broadcasting tool. And this goes to Pam's point again, a camera. So a camera could live stream to the YouTube channel and people could participate that way. But I don't know if I agree with buying anything until we know our future. So I think that's all.
I agree with not buying things, but I think we have an issue.
I totally agree. And I don't know where it would go, Dan Klimek. I honestly don't know, but I've had many conversations that at some point there needs to be some technological advances for this town that grants everybody equitable access to some sort of device without the fear or threat of personal information being tangled into town business work. The end.
Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you.
Yeah, and from my perspective, real quickly, if it's for a general multi-purpose use, we'd probably want to budget for that into a building department contractual or equipment area, which we'll get into next Wednesday as I go over the finance budget. Just real quickly, I've got about $20,000 sitting there tentatively for next year. And again, obviously that can be allocated in a variety of ways. But again, that's a conversation for next week.
Okay, thank you. Pam, I don't know if this is your budget or whose budget, but just to let everybody in the audience know that we have been and we are paying, I think it's $19.95 a month for Zoom. And so we've paid that March, April, May, June, July, August, September. And I would anticipate paying it throughout, through January, I guess. It's month by month and we can cancel at any time, but just to let everybody in the audience know that we are paying for that.
And I believe that comes out of the supervisor contractual.
Okay.
And I know that Councilman Corbin said no merit. I just wanted to also let you know that my deputy is probably on the lower end paid and has the most responsibility in taking taxpayer money and doing licensing and keeping the customer service and office flowing. We are the main point of communication with the public. So that's very sad to hear that.
It was sad for me to say it.
Could you say that again, Amber?
I said it was sad for me to say it, but I'm trying to be consistent and rational with my decisions, with no cost of living adjustment for any employees in the 2021 budget. And that when the town hall closed down, the town board agreed to pay all employees, whether they stayed home and worked, or were able to come into work. And every 2 weeks, Councilman Woolever and Supervisor Cusey will attest to, we revisited it and we continued to extend those payments when we have many residents that have lost their jobs, are furloughed, are staying home with their children. And I'm just very mindful of us all.
I do understand that. I do, at the time, Shelley was not my deputy, but did come in the town hall and did assist in my office during that time when my deputy was not available.
Right. Shelley's wonderful.
Yeah, I would make a quick note, Amber, just for your benefit as well, that Shelley has come in at a hourly rate that is significantly less than where Siobhan was.
And
Not that that
less
makes
than
a
what she
difference.
made in the assessor's office.
Yeah, not that that makes any difference, but just for what it's worth.
I
Thank you.
understand what you're saying, Dan, but I don't,
Yeah.
I don't think it makes any difference.
I don't think it does either. All right. To summarize what I've heard here, that I will incorporate into the overall budget plan, we are talking about, and again, Dan, Jerry, Amber, please correct me if I've missed something here. We're talking about not doing the increase on the merit adjustment for Shelley. That's worth, it says 946, roughly $1,000. We're talking about not allowing for $4,000 for building inspector clerical support, and we're talking about not putting the $1,000 in for the comprehensive plan down below. Have I heard that correctly? Is there any other adjustments or items that I should be considering?
The results of your statements will be seen in the final budget. And
That is correct. This would reduce Pam's budget by approximately $6,000. It'll be a little bit less, but about that amount. I just want to make sure that I understand that, and I will incorporate that if that is the the wishes of Jerry, of yourself, Amber, and Dan.
I can go along with that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Nothing else for Pam. We can move along. Mike Tellen, are you still there?
Yes. Is Judge
All right.
Nance on?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and tackle the court at this point. That is going to be on page 9. And this one, well, I'm in the wrong document, excuse me.
Do we
Yeah,
have Judge Nance with us?
Mike, if I can speak to this first, please.
Sure.
I did not, in developing the information for what we have at this point, I have received nothing from either Mike or from Don Nab. So as I noted on your packet, since I did not get any response, I've just simply dropped in 2021 numbers to match what we have for 2020. So what you're going to see is everything is exactly identical, from the fines that we'll receive to the personnel, equipment, and contractual. And again, as I say, simply since I have not received anything, I could not factor anything in. So Mike, without putting you on the spot, that's what we have at this point.
Correct. And as you know from an exchange we had, I didn't get any of this material because it was being sent to Michael at Town of Rush, which is an email that I've never used since I was appointed in January of 2018. So I found out by making an inquiry that these deadlines and these documents, I think it was the day after, the 28th or something like that. So
it's the same emails, Mike, that I've used pretty much throughout the year. I may have responded to a different email without realizing it, but everything we did for 2019 would have gone to the same emails. But regardless of that, I know we talked almost 3 weeks ago now. I still have not seen anything. So again, at this point, my hands were somewhat tied. I have to put together some numbers.
okay.
And it's, whatever you got, please go ahead.
Sure. I met with Judge Nab on the Monday the 10th and reviewed the budget that had been plugged in from 2019 to 2020. And what we were doing was just carrying forward those numbers based on that discussion. But we also appreciate the drop in revenue, which I think is about over the first 6 months of the court has been, say, 50% off. Some of the personnel services, and I think that I've responded to Councilwoman Corbin when she asked some questions of me a couple of days ago. Judge Nab was in those emails too, so I haven't heard from him, so I'm sort of, for want of a better but certainly accurate description, winging it, because I've never been involved in any of the budgets that have been assembled or proposed, and I've never received any of the budget information in previous years. So with that being said, I think we hold the line on things, and I'm trying to look at the bare bones, and that's really a function of what comes in terms of volume. Right now, we're 50% off the volume from last year, and frankly, I don't see that improving. And I know that Councilwoman Corbin was asking for some projections, and I think I suggested that I did not have a crystal ball, but nobody here does, but we're all aware of the uncertainty. So my thinking would be, if we're trying to put a revenue number on it, it would be 75% of the $68,000 that we received.
Yeah, Mike, if I can interrupt real quick.
Sure.
Wouldn't it be roughly 75% of what we got in 2019?
Yes.
Okay, and 75% of what we got in 2019 is just under 68,000, and we're talking for next year.
Correct. In other words, if we got 68,000 in 2019, and we reduced that for, say, 2000.
Right, but your actual for 2019 was $89,000. If you, right here, okay, that's what you actually brought in.
Right.
Okay, net of what had to go to the state. So if I take 75% of 89,000, that's, well, let me try that again, excuse me.
Dan and Mike, it's Amber.
That's 66,750. Yeah, go ahead, Amber, go ahead.
I thought I understood Judge Talon to say 75% of the 68,000.
No, he did, and my question, Amber, without putting anyone on the spot, but so that is that, you know, is it 75% of what was budgeted or 75% of what the actual was? The actual revenues for 2019 were $89,000.
Right, and the actual revenues that I'm looking at for 17 were like 58, say, and 18 was 60. 2019, I think were higher, and I think that has to do with case volume, because if I looked at the number of dispositions between, say, 2018 and 2019, and this is, so 2018 we had 1,184 dispositions. 2019 we had 1,724. That's from, so that was a 45% increase between those 2 years, Don. But if you divide the revenues from each of those years, essentially it works out to be approximately $50 per disposition. So if you use that as a unit of measure, and you use what's happening now in this year, this first 2 quarters, I don't see it being above 75% of, say, $68,000.
Okay, and that would put you at 50.
Yeah.
That would put you at $51,000, or it increases 17,000.
Right.
Now,
And that,
go ahead, ma'am, please.
no, that, and Dan, that's what Judge Talon emailed me.
Okay.
75% of the 68,000.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Okay. And again, I just want to make sure, you know, that we all understand that that's another $17,000 hit that we're going to have to come up with somewhere.
right. Well, when I was listening to Pat Stevens talk, I mean, I felt the difficulty in trying to do these projections. I'm sure everybody who's on the board and listening appreciates that. With respect to, so I think that a realistic figure to work with in a budget that we're projecting and not knowing the duration and depth of COVID-19 and how it affects our economy. But the bottom line is people aren't driving, and most of this revenue comes from uniform traffic tickets. So if people aren't driving, then they don't have the opportunity to be cited, and so that's part of it. So on the revenue side, that's where we are. There could be more, there could be less. So really what we're looking at is how do we become more efficient in terms of the expenses, and we have personal, equipment, and contractual. I think that we projected, looks like 75,000, 78,000, excuse me. I'm trying to read these small numbers. And this first 6 months, I believe, let me take a look. I believe the first 6 months we had a reduction of 50% in revenue and probably 25% or so, and I have to look, in terms of our personnel services. Those services, and I think, you know, there are different ways of approaching this, but just to give you sort of my sense of this, we have 2 judges who collectively paid $31,000 annually. We have 2 clerks, and if you're trying to extrapolate the number of days in a week and the number of hours that we typically work and the cost for the present hourly wages, you're talking between $22,000 and $20,000 for the 2 court clerks. And that would be, I think, if people were working Monday through Friday, 5 hours a day. There is a need a need for what is called a clerk 4 on the court nights, because one person can't handle that. It's a necessity. And the follow-up in terms of processing things the following day. It may be a bit of a luxury to have somebody come in the day before, but the point is, if you have this one clerk on the court night and the following day and perhaps the day before for 5 hours each day, that's 15 hours. And if we're meeting what I call DA days, when we have high volume and where we have the need for the clerk 4, you're dealing with 30 hours a month. And say 12 of those months yield maybe 5,500, maybe $6,000. So if you're looking at the core, that is the court personnel, okay, the 2 court clerks, the 2 judges, and the floating clerk 4 position, you're looking at perhaps $55,000 or $56,000. Personnel, in addition to those, includes Tom Sylvester, who is on the line, I think, in personnel for about $3,200, I'm pretty sure. Pardon me for a moment. Yes, Tom is about $3,600. Now, Tom is going to restrict his hours due to COVID-19 considerations, so he's not going to be available on the court nights, but he will make himself available, he tells us, on nights or days when we have summary proceedings or small claims hearings or civil actions, or say trials. Bench trials are what we generally have, if we have them. So he's available, so I don't know how that plays in. Now, on the other side of additional personnel, under contractual, and it's a little confusing, contractual is Janier Security Services, and that's a $12,000 item. What they have been doing is they bring 1 security officer in on what we call the DA nights. Right now, it would appear that we may have to double that. So, and by doubling it, it is to accommodate the protocols that we have to follow. And I understand from Judge Nebb, who I spoke with last week on this, that he actually went up to Irondequoit Town Court and got some information on their protocols, and also got some information about the costs of implementing the COVID protocols in a court such as Irondequoit. And that that cost would be approximately $2,500 based on what I understand from Judge Nab and he understands from Arundequoit. But that would handle the flow in and out of court. And we're still sort of working through a couple of models about how to do that. So I don't know if the COVID-19 protocols that will be practiced by the court under the direction, because we're getting general orders from the Office of Court Administration through the 7th Judicial District, how much that stretches out a court night. And by that, I'll give you an example. Say if we have a calendar of 50 people, how do we can't have them sitting in court, and so we're working on how do we park them, how do we alert them, how do we screen them, take their temperature, how do we keep them outside of court, bring them in, stagger people over, say, if it's a uniform traffic ticket, maybe that's 10 minutes. If it's something more serious that involves things or hearings, then we have to sort of stretch things out. So it's difficult to say that we can handle the volume if it remains what it has been with 2 DA nights and slowing down the flow. So one of the speculations, which I know doesn't help you here, is that we may have to sort of stretch out those days or maybe have a 3rd DA night to accommodate that. On the other hand, we have reduced volume. So that may adjust itself that way. One of the ways we might be able to reduce court time is what the district attorney's office is doing, is having essentially direct communications with defendants via a dedicated web page where they can hopefully dispose of something in that manner and reduce the necessity of having a defendant come in and therefore reduce the amount of time that we're spending in court in terms of the resources that we need to appropriate in this budget for the town court. So I'm just sort of giving you a sense. I don't know how it's going to work. We don't know how it's going to work. One of the considerations that were discussed between Judge Nab and I is, okay, let's try having people park in the small lot, what I call the north lot. And we also discussed how the heck do we accommodate everybody? And we're talking about maybe, and this would be Rick Tracy or whoever is handling how the building is managed. Maybe we run folks through the typical library entrance and run them through there, move the magnetometer over, sit them outside, bring them in periodically. So we sort of say, okay, we have 5 people coming in at 4 o'clock and basically stay in your car or move in as we go along. That process is complicated to the extent that, yes, we still do have winter in the town of Rush. And I can't imagine, how we're going to accommodate that. So we may need the larger lot, or we may need to have a 3rd court date. I know this doesn't really help in terms of giving you the hard numbers that you're looking for, but it just illustrates, I hope, some of the variables that we're trying to contend with. But I think that the hardcore numbers in terms of cost is probably about $55,000. And we have probably $25,000 in what I would call equipment. We're going to have an additional, I think, extra security guard in part because of the COVID protocols and in part because Tom Sylvester is not going to be available to do that. So the cost of Janir security is almost twice as much as, say, Tom's hourly rate. So I can't give you hard numbers on these things, just some fundamental numbers that I see based on what I can reasonably project. So contractual, it's at 12, but I don't know if it will actually go up. I don't know if we're going to have a better handle on it and we can find somebody to replace Tom if in fact Tom tenders his resignation, which he hasn't done, and we haven't asked him to do that because he's valuable in terms of the non-DA activities of the court. So I don't know if that helps, but that's the best I can do at this point. I know there are other things that you asked, Councilwoman Corbin, that I tried to address. in my reply. And why don't you throw any questions you might have at me, and I'll do the best I can.
I interpret what you just said was a very thorough explanation of the situation as it exists and the inability to project into the future. But it sounds to me like if you have to follow some of the protocols that you're going to have to establish, how are you going to do it with the present workforce? And that leads to, did I interpret you to say that a additional clerk would be required?
No, right, and this was the discussion that we had at the board meeting in February earlier this year. So we may have different points of view concerning how best to utilize a court clerk, or whether you have one or two of them. I'm looking at it, I'm saying, as I indicated in part of my response to Councilwoman Corbin, I've spoken with my court clerk.
I lost you.
Mike, you're muted.
I lost him too. I thought it was me again.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there. I think the question is personnel, Jerry? Is that what you're asking?
Correct.
Okay. So if and this would be if we're working say 5 days a week, we're working a court clerk would be working say 8:30 or 9 to 1:30 or 2. So that's a 5-hour day. So that's to staff the court. You're talking about 25 hours. Okay, bare bones. And then the only time that you would need, in my opinion, the additional clerk would be on the DA night and the following day, because you're just buried. Sometimes we leave, at 8 or 8:30, and we've been cooking, say, since the middle of the day. So somebody like Pam has been there since 8:30 in the morning, at 9:30. And then winds up going through. So those are heavy days. And then the paperwork that is required to process what happened in court is work for the part-time clerk, if you will, and the court clerk. So that's the core. So if you take, as I was saying, that clerk, from my point of view, you're talking about, say, 5 hours on the DA night, 5 hours the following day. And if you're really trying to get yourself up and running, probably a day before. So that's 15 hours per DA day. And if you have two of them, you're talking about 30 hours per month for that clerk. And that's as bare bones as you can get, as far as I can tell. And when you take those numbers based on the hourlies that I've calculated, I'm looking at, if you take Judge Nab and myself, take our two court clerks, you take the clerk with the restrictions that I'm suggesting, you're talking about $55,000 or $56,000, and then you have this contractual piece, which we're going to try and manage a little better. And I don't know, quite frankly, Supervisor QC, whether Tom is out of it, or we get somebody else, or we're going to actually need, as we move forward, 2 Janir security people to implement and manage the COVID protocols coming to and from court. And I think over the next couple of months, because Judge Nab starts this Monday with trying to implement some of these things, and I start in September, we'll get a better sense of it, and we really need to get a grasp of it. And I know that, there's this flu season coming up, and then we have our winters, and so that may just complicate things in terms of being able to move people in and out of town court, in and out of the building, and where do they stay when they're not in the building. So I'm hopeful that some of the dispositions by mail through the DA dealing directly with defendants will reduce the people who actually appear in court after pleading not guilty. That's what we're really looking to do, is trying to save something there, but we don't know whether it's going to work.
Thank you.
Okay. And nobody's proposing merit increases. Nobody's proposing cost of living. We're just freezing where we are right now. Just to be clear, because I know that was an issue that was discussed in other budgets.
And Judge Talon, it's Amber. As I have asked every department head about your equipment of $1,800. And I
Yes.
know what you wrote to me in your email, but if you want to share what,
Sure.
because if we look at it, it's 2020 rolled over again, the same amount, but it was.
Yeah. And so the $1,800 looks like it's audio-visual equipment, and I looked to see if I could dig into that. I think it was yesterday when you made this inquiry, and I couldn't find anything in our budget book about it. It looks like it's audio-visual, so I have to assume that it's a one-shot expense. But what's coming in its place, arguably, is the $2,500 for the equipment that was recommended to Judge Nab by Arundecoyt Town Court. Footnote to that, and again, this is speculative, but I know that there is a program that Office of Court Administration has raised, which looks to reimburse town and village courts for some of the necessary costs of PPE. But I don't know if we're just talking about a couple of gallons of Purell, or if we can get into something, if we need some of this equipment, if that too is covered. And I don't have an answer as I'm speaking to you now about that. But that's a possibility, but I don't think we can put it in. So I think that 1,800 goes out, but then this 2,500 goes in for the COVID-19 equipment.
So are you asking Dan Klimick to change the 1,800 on line 2 equipment to 2,500 then?
Yes, Councilwoman.
Okay.
And that would have been for COVID equipment?
That's what it was conveyed to Judge Nab, that this is the stuff that they're using, and this is the cost of the package that allows Arundecoyt Town Court parts to flow people through and test them and take temperatures and be able to keep the distance by using some pads and sign-ins. So there's some pads involved in that.
Yeah. Mike, one of the things that I put on the screen, and I'll do it real quickly again for you. This is what was in the 2020 budget. There's the justices, the clerks. I can send this to you if you would like again, so that you have a sense of how the 2020 budget, where the funds were built into it, and then how you can work within that, those numbers. If you would like to see that, I'll be glad to get that to you.
What you're showing me right now, Dan, is it says 6 months 2020, and we have fines of 17,278.
No. What should be on the screen right now that I'm sharing.
That I believe I had received.
You would have got that last year, yes.
Right. I got it from you after I followed up.
Okay.
August.
Yeah. This Mike is different from that. This is coming from last year's adopted budget. And what this area here is that I'm kind of highlighting right now is the components that you use to build the budget. There's the 78,509 is broken up by the justices, clerks, and so on. The 12,000 was made up in these 3 lines here. If that can be of any benefit to you, I'll be glad to forward that to you.
Is that a document that has in the upper right-hand corner, July 30th, 2020, 11:09 a.m.?
I don't know that. This is part of the adopted budget.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That I did get that, and at the end of August.
Okay.
And it's Exhibit B to what I sent to Councilwoman Corbett.
Okay. Just if it had any benefit. So what I have at this by $17,000 from 68,000 to 51,000, and we would need to increase the equipment category by $700. So we're looking at about $17,800 increase in cost courts. Now, it'd be a disservice for me if I did not point out to you, Amber, Dan, and Jerry, that if we look at the bottom line net numbers for the court here, you'll note that the 2020 amended budget was showing a contribution to the court of $24,300. In 2019, the court actually contributed to the town $19,000, 2018, $12,800, and 2017, $5,500. If I'm adding another $17,000, $18,000 to this $24,000 number, we're saying that, from an average here of a very small amount near break even, we're now going to be asking the town to contribute roughly $41,000 to the court department. I just want to make sure that the board members are aware of what that means.
We're in an ever-changing atmosphere.
I understand. I just want to make sure that I don't want I wouldn't want you to come back and say, Dan, why didn't you say, hey, the court is running these kind of numbers? And if that's what it is, that's what it is. Again, my job is to put the numbers together based on what I'm hearing.
No, I think what I was trying to get to is, if you're looking at what you have as personal services, and we're at 78,509, and people are saying, how can we reduce that or conserve it? I gave you the core, the basics, which I think yields $55,000. Now, that being said, it could contract simply because if there's no work to do, then we're not going to be in there with our clerks. Now, I'm paid a salary, so I don't know what to do about that. But the point is that I think the core personal services is $56,000 if we're bare bones, the way I'm looking at it. The other items that are in Exhibit A, Councilman Corbin, which is what I had, the Rush Court 2019, there are things that are noted there that bring us up to 75,000 plus that I can't tell you what they are. I don't know what, I don't think we needed $1,100 for clerks at trials. I don't know how many trials we're going to have. We had, a small claims hearing that went on for 3 hours a couple of weeks ago. That's not predictable. So I think the core is $56,000, and we'll be frugal as best we can if we have to spend any more money than that. And then, we just have reduced revenue simply because people aren't in cars, and maybe law enforcement have better things to do than write tickets. I don't know. So that's totally beyond our control.
Would it be unfair, Mike, for me to suggest that whatever reductions we have in fines and increase we have in equipment would be offset by personnel service cuts?
I think that's the direction I would like to go, and it would be,
okay.
I'd love to hear from, Judge Knapp, because I know sometimes we have different points of view, but I think that's the core of what a bare bones full-time court would be. It could be less based on volume. It could turn out to be more, largely due, I think, to the protocols we have to follow for COVID-19 under some of the general orders that we're subject to.
And if I may ask then, that if so that in theory, if the fines did increase above the 51,000, logically we would need more personnel help, so they would somewhat go hand in hand.
Intuitively, you might want to agree with that, but what I'm saying is that would be, say the 56,000 is the basic framework for operating the court during 2 DA nights, okay, with a minimum of support. and then what we might need to do in order to answer phones and process paper and do all the things that come with cases. So if we have fewer cases, then maybe what we're looking at is fewer hours. But that's the basic. So if we wind up having 75% of the revenue in 2020, okay, so we're moving down from 68, say, to 51.
Right.
I mean, there's the gap has closed, Dan, I guess is what I would.
Okay, right. Again, I just want to be sure I understand, you know, as we put this
This is
together.
new territory for me, and I don't have all the data that I would like to have to be as responsive to the board and yourself, Dan, as I'd like to be. But
I understand. And Amber, Dan, and Jerry, what I might suggest then is that any decrease in this number 68 and increase in the equipment, I'll just simply offset that against the personnel services. That would leave you, Mike, with about $60,000 in that category. That's a little more than what you're asking, but that gives you a little bit of flexibility.
If we're running into problems, then we'll certainly let you know. But I'll do my best, as indicated, to.
Okay.
I think we can handle our court with the 5 hours.
Gotcha.
5 hours a day.
Okay. I'm good.
Judge Talon, I have a question not directly related to your budget, but have you and Judge Nab had any discussions whatsoever regarding additional protection, like sneeze shields in the courtroom or anything like that?
I believe Judge Nab, and I don't want to speak for him because we didn't specifically discuss that. So I would get back to you, Supervisor, after I communicated with Judge Nab on that issue, because he may have touched on that with Arundapoy.
Thank you.
But I can tell you from my appearances in federal court, I mean, I was watching very closely the protocols that the various courts have used in my appearances. And for example, you know, before anybody, and when everybody leaves the tables after a court appearance, somebody comes in, cleans the tables, and one of the things that I noticed is they have these little like shower caps they put on the microphones, which are like $12 for 100, which may be a good idea for making sure that whoever's sitting down in that space isn't picking something up from microphones that we haven't cleaned. Okay, like we can clean the tabletop, but we can't clean that kind of stuff.
All stuff we should be thinking of. Thank you.
We have been thinking about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
If there's anything else, you can follow it up with me. And if I don't have an answer, or we have to, I'll speak with Judge Nab and we'll try to get you the answers that you're looking for. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks. I'm going to get off now.
You're off.
Thank you.
Mark, if you would like to go and start over with highway, this would be page 36 for everyone. Mark?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Where you want to go with this?
You're usually very, very good in your explanations. I can highlight real quickly here in the overall for the highway department here that we're looking at $133,000 that would be the net contribution. Comparing that to $203,000 for 2020, but we had budgeted for the excavator of $230,000. We're not showing that obviously in 2020. We are showing an $85,000 contribution to the highway equipment capital account, which is what we do on an annual basis whenever we're not buying equipment. That being said, Mark, go for it.
So no purchases to that. As far as if we're looking at The point ones, which are personnel, that remains basically exactly where we were at. Overall, that's based on 2,080 hours times whatever hourly rate per man is. And then in addition to that, for snow and ice, there's approximately $28,000 to $30,000, I believe, in overtime, which constitutes about 100% winter as far as snowfall removal.
Is that line trending down or is it staying flat, or do you have a trend developed there?
Yeah, it's pretty much remains flat. I never budget for step increases or merit. We pretty much go at it as a whole unit. It seems like the rest of the town employees have kind of gone along with that same line, although that doesn't necessarily need to be that way. But I'm kind of all for one, one for all. That's why, I've always kind of relied on the town board being fair as far as any cost of living increases. And I think overall throughout the years that I've been here, they certainly have. These are definitely some odd times. So if that's not going to occur this year, then so be it. I'm sure they can all suck it up and we'll get by. So. Any questions to any of the point one items as far as personnel services? No?
There's basically no changes.
No, over the years I've changed it. We're right now working with the smallest full-time highway crew, probably I go back 37 years, and I know a little bit about it prior to that. I've reduced it by one man and gone to all one-man plow operations, so there's no two persons in a truck during any of the snow and ice. It's a little bit more efficient, and it seems to be working well. It took a little bit to get them to go to that route, but once they did, I think they almost prefer it that way. So that's where we're at as far as personnel.
Thank you.
All right. Going down to machinery, like Dan had already spoke, we have a big excavator purchase in there. I'm still waiting on that. It's a Volvo excavator. They're produced in Germany. I just spoke with the salesman about a week ago, and he said it was still basically on track, which seems strange to me because I know that the pandemic was worldwide. So I figured there'd be at least about a month pushback, but he's still anticipating it somewhere arrival time back to their Syracuse shop. We've got some modifications as far as the thumb that need to be done on it, but that should be potentially the end of August. We see it at least arrive in New York coming out of Germany. Now, as far as the point, you want to go to the point fours, that's where I've got the road work, and I've already spoken with Jerry. In lieu of the library roof, I'm going to make some modifications to what I've got in here. I shot a little high because my overall budget was down by approximately $68,000 from last year's. So I figured I'd throw in Fisher Road as a big project and complete that in 1 year and back down on some of my other road work. Since then, I've spoken with him. That puts everything up, so we're trying to get stuff back on par. Over the last 5 years, the budget for both those two DA 5110 account and the DA 5112 account have been at about $143,000. So instead of having the $195,000 in the DA 5112, I'd like to reduce that to $100,000, do half official road this year, but bump up the road maintenance on the 5110 to $45,000. That's a reduction of about $70,000 total across the board on that. When you're doing road work, you want to basically do 10% of your roads just to keep them in a maintenance standpoint. Right now, we've been keeping up with that, maybe doing a little bit more. They were in, somewhat of a bad disarray there when I kind of took over. I've caught up on a lot of them. There's still a few big roads out there, as the overall infrastructure of town roads.
I keep losing you.
You're losing me?
Yeah,
You're in and out.
Now?
you're in and out, in and out.
Well, that may be my laptop. I do not know. I have no video, but my audio has, I thought, been functioning. So,
Now you're good.
all right. Where did I lose you?
Back on road construction.
All right. Did you get what changes I'd like to make to this?
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
Okay, I'll shut up.
No, don't.
So it's a net savings of 75,000 is what you're saying over your original request.
Putting DA 5112 down to an even $100,000, completing half official road this year, bumping up a little bit so that I stick with my 10% of town road work, and putting that one up to 45,000. So
Okay.
if that's 70,000, I guess, or 75,000. So, correct.
I'm comfy with that.
Okay.
You've got two others.
Which ones?
Sounds good.
Looks like Amber and Dan. I can see Dan's head, but I can't see his face.
Any questions from you guys? Dan, Amber?
Sounds good, Mark.
Okay.
Mark, this is Amber. Mark was gracious enough to let me talk with him for quite a while on the phone to try to understand this. And Mark, I'm just trying to remember, total revenues are down. And I don't remember why you thought the total revenues would be down. Is that because of the sales of scrap?
That you are 100% correct on that.
Okay.
That's basically the difference on the revenue portion. That would
Right.
come back into general. Since the excavator, I was anticipating 35 or 30,000, I think, on that. This year's reduction, maybe 2,000, maybe some scrap metal or
Yeah.
whatever other stuff that we
Okay.
could anticipate in that. So that's the difference from that. Since we're not buying a piece of equipment this year, I won't be selling anything or disposing of it. So that's pretty much maybe just whatever scrap is generated.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Let's go to highway superintendent budget. That would be pages 52 and 55. And this one looks like you basically budgeted the same, similar numbers.
Yeah, same thing, pretty much all the way across on that. What have I got different? A little bit, when you get down to A5132, I have a 4% increase across the board on utilities, which include natural gas, electric, and the water. That's
Yeah.
Can't do anything about that.
Unfortunately not.
right.
Any questions there?
Any other questions
think
on this part?
Yeah, I'd just like to educate from learning from you for those residents and guests that are joining us tonight. We talked about your, where was it? $700 for a laptop because you are in need of a new laptop under the equipment. And that's also under the park. So we'll see that again in a minute. And then down under contractual, I had asked you about A8160, the landfill. Can you just explain to the residents what that 12,000 is for, Mark?
Right. That is, we have an agreement with Zolad Construction for grinding. Goes back probably 4 years. I've reached out. They were at about 4,000 per grind. I think it was Terry Tree wanted 10, and there was one other contractor that was right around the 10,000 mark also. So the 4,000 is been a pretty good deal. It's been a contract that they've just kind of been renewing and allowing us that $4,000 grind. At one point, we were actually selling that wood mulch to the tune of probably 2,000 per grind. That ship sailed, and the whole market for wood waste has kind of gone by the wayside. I think it was in Niagara Generation in Buffalo had converted one of their coal burning facilities over to burn cellulose, mulch, and wood waste. And then when natural gas due to hydrofracking hit the market, the cost was no longer viable to burn wood waste when they could get natural gas to power their plant for less. We've been up, this goes back whenever they started this. I think we were paying somebody to oversee and watch that transfer station down there, and along with the grinding, and it was probably $12,000 20 years ago. So the 12,000 is 3 grinds basically. Last year we did 2. There's been a bumper crop of dead ash. That place is being pretty much abused by contractors. It's tough keeping them out of there. It's just a remote site. It would be great to, get an upgraded website where I could post different hours, lock that gate up. Although when you lock the gate, then they throw stuff. I've had to push it out of the road down there. So it's kind of an ongoing nightmare. We don't need to discuss that now. I'd like to do that some other time down the road, but some changes should be made down there in my mind.
I agree.
I agree. And the last thing, Mark and I had a question why, if you look at Dan, can you scroll to the very top? So this is called the highway superintendent budget.
That's
and
correct.
We just previously, Mark went over the highway department budget.
Good
so
question.
You'll
Yeah,
see,
yeah.
You'll see under personal service, that's what Mark, tell me if I get 100 on my test or not.
Go
Under
ahead,
the
go.
personal, under the personnel services on your highway superintendent, that is the highway superintendent and your clerk's salaries. And then
Correct.
the people that work in the highway department. Oh, hang on. You told me this comes out of the general budget.
Right.
And
it's
then
an
the
A account.
highway.
Right. Since I'm
Did I
an
get that
elected
right?
official, that's an A account. So I
That's an A
I can't
account.
increase my own salary, although it's on that line item. So
And everyone else in the highway department falls under the budget we just went over previously. Did I get 100?
yes, very good, Amber. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And a gold star.
That's all.
And a gold star. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so next we go to parks, which will be on your page 65. And pavilion is included here. Pat had touched on that. She does all the scheduling for the pavilion, but the pavilion's revenue and the pavilion costs have always been a part of the parks budget that Mark has. So it's kind of one of those shared areas that that we have within our budget templates here.
I'd be more than happy to give it to Pat entirely.
We may do that if the board would like in future years. What I can do
Have
is
fun with that.
allocate the pavilion rental and the pavilion costs, if you may, and set that up where it would show up under recreation if
Yeah.
that was the desire.
Where does that pavilion revenue go now? Where does it end up eventually?
Well, it's part of the general fund revenue.
Correct.
Okay. Again, as we collect the the fees for use of the pavilion, it goes into an account A.2025, and again, you can see it. We set that in conversation with Pat. I set that at 19,100. Mark really doesn't have much to do with that. But as Pat had indicated, we're back to where we were before in terms of activity with the pavilion. So that should be a relatively safe number for us to put within our budget model.
Just curious, how did that end up with highway versus recreation?
Well, it's not highway, it's parks and pavilion and,
Well, Parks and Pavilion is part of highway.
right, well, yes, and what, how did it, you know, Jerry, you're going back years before my time. Okay, and I can't explain or advise why it's over there, but yeah, certainly it would be easy enough for me to peel that off and move the pavilion in future periods. It's a little late now for me within the model to try to move it, but for future years, what we can do is put the pavilion revenues as well as the pavilion costs under the recreation area, and I'll be glad to do that.
I'll tell you why I asked, because we've got a recreation director who doesn't have a full plate and is very nervous and apprehensive about the future because of shortfall in revenue to fund that operation. We've got this operation here in Parks and Administration, part of Highway, who isn't going looking for a revenue stream. I propose, I'm not proposing tonight, but I suggest that it might be better aligned with Parks and Recreation in the future. And that's probably something I'd want the board to take into consideration, to be thinking about.
Yeah, the net impact of the pavilion within this budget is about $6,700 of revenue over a cost. So if the board is of a like mind in future periods, we'll bring that within the recreation area.
This is Amber. I'm just trying to, again, think of the world we live in. And if we do the same projection of revenue of 19,100 from 2020 to 2021, and we know we're not going to make the 2020 projection because of the town hall and everything being shut down, I'm just wondering how the supervisor and Councilman Woolever feel if that number should go down a little revenue-wise, just in case we end up shutting down again for a couple of weeks or something like that, where someone had rented the pavilion and the governor shuts us down for a short period of time.
Well, that's an interesting comment you just made, Amber, because I had a chat with Pat today, and I was looking at the revenues for the month of July produced by the town clerk, the reporting sheet. And it troubled me because just last week I sat and signed a whole bunch of refund checks, which made the revenues that reported unrealistic.
Aren't those just the refund checks for?
Was that for the refund?
Deposit back?
Yes.
Was that for the pavilion, Jerry, or was that for the after school? I was thinking that was mostly after school.
Well, I don't know what the mix was, but there were refunds for pavilion. And you know, it's simple and say, well, this report shows $5,000 in pavilion rental, but then you sit there and sign $1,000 worth of refund checks. You say, well, what's wrong with this picture?
That's just a deposit, the $100 you get back if the pavilion's clean, isn't it? Aren't those just the $100 checks you get back?
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm just using my numbers as an example, and your numbers are accurate about the deposits being refunded. But I also agree with Amber, and that is the tentative budget for 2021, pavilion rental and field rental. I'm skeptical about that, because, you know, it all depends on who you listen to. And some of the people that I have a great deal of respect talk, and I get very nervous, like Michael Mendoza, the medical director, and Fauci, the disease specialist. So that 19.1 makes me a little nervous, but then again, I don't know any more than anyone else.
You want to drop it a couple thousand, or Amber, how do you feel? Where would you like to see it?
I don't know what her monthly, oh, I shouldn't, what the monthly typical reservation revenue is. Can you figure that out? Do you have that in there anywhere, Dan?
What I can do is, Pam, are you there? What I can do is tomorrow morning, I'll get with Pam Bucci. Pam gives me a report. It's got a 1-month lag. But if I can get the pavilion rental that we had through July.
Yeah, I can give you a breakdown of everything in the recreation for that.
Okay, yeah, if you can scan and send that to me, then what I'll do, Amber, is I'll pass that along to you and Jerry and Dan so that you'll see what our 7-month revenue number is for the pavilion. And I'll be glad to break that out on a monthly basis so you can see any trends as well.
But could you include with that, please? I forgive the interruption, but could you include with that a year earlier, the 7 months, so that we have something of realistic comparison?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll give you a printout of the 2019 account analysis for the 2025, the pavilion rental, so that we can see how we got to the 17,225 that's here. I'm pointing with my pen, excuse me. So I'll get, what I'll do is I'll give you that, and then once I get the July information from Pam, I'll give you the first 7 months, excuse me, of 2020, so we can see how that is trending, and then let me know where you feel this 19, this number should go. Again, it's a crapshoot. Obviously, we're guessing. We don't know. Again, when I put this together a month ago, I said, okay, we know that it's getting better. Pat has said that it's getting like it used, like it was before. So I dropped that number in there as a starting point, if you may. But yeah, again, if we feel that number should go down to 17 or 15 or wherever we feel it should go, we can put that into the budget model. So I'll send those schedules to Dan, yourself, Amber, you, and Jerry, yourself. And then just let me know what kind of number you feel good about.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay, and that I should be able to get to you tomorrow morning once I've got the information from Pam. Mark?
Dan, can you scroll? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Do we want to move to 7110 Parks Personnel Services? That included the gardener portion of it. I know this year we've had volunteers doing the gardening. Big portion of that is watering, which I'm sure they found out after they first got started in the lack of rain there for a few months. Now we're kind of more on a regular pattern, but I felt kind of bad for them, and it's a hit and miss, so you never know exactly what the weather's going to bring for that.
Yeah, it's remarkable because it looks so nice.
Yeah, it does. They did a good job overall. I was not sure how that was all going to work out, but they all pulled together and did an excellent job as far as the gardening. And I know you were saying that it didn't look like they were going to have interest in doing that this coming year.
Well, it's not that they don't have an interest. They do have an interest, but they also feel that it would be spread too thin because they're going to devote a lot of resources to the 100 acres. And they have suggested that we consider getting someone to be representative of a beautification committee and consider having them run a volunteer gardening crew in 21. I have not proposed that to the board yet because I don't have all the details that I need, but that will be on the table.
So at this time, I have the one guy. We used to have 2 parks guys. I knocked that down to 1 probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Basically just does the mowing, string trimming. There's no real watering involved in that. So I've kept the budget basically the same for that. And I've also included what we would be paying the gardener for that. So that's in that budget. So where this all goes, I really do not know. But worst case scenario, there's money in there for the mowing, and that Gardner portion is still in there. So it can always be revised when you guys figure out exactly where that's headed.
Thank you.
As far as the 7110.2, I've got 500 in there. Potential purchase of a string trimmer. Those things, you get a couple years out of them and you're onto a new one. So I didn't want to throw 0 in there. I may or may not purchase one. We've got one that works fairly well. He complains about it from time to time, so I thought I'd at least budget for a new one if needed. That's the .2. And the BOCES, kept that remaining the same. Basically, we did not, the fair was not over there this year, so there was no temporary water that needed to be installed. We'd had subcontractor do a portion of that to the tune of about $5,000, I believe. We mow and maintain the trails, which is basically a charge back on some of that equipment and time that I have my highway guy doing it. So that remained flat at the 8,000. So if it's not expended, like this year, whatever, because the fair wasn't there, there was no 5,000 for temporary water installation. And I may be at $3,000 with trail mowing over there at best. No. Any questions with that portion of it?
Let me just add that being the optimist that I am, I anticipated that the LWRP, the Local Waterfront Revitalization Project, would be off to a start before this. But there again, it's been the victim of COVID and a couple of other things. It's still forge ahead, but not as soon as I would like. So I'm becoming skeptical about the availability of the permanent water over there for even 21. So I think we've got to consider that we're going to have to go with the temporary again.
Okay, so that money would be in there.
So Supervisor, it's Amber. Are you saying that the town subsidizes the Monroe County Fair for $5,000 for water to the fair each year?
That's our agreement.
I would agree with that. It appears like that to me from what the paperwork I've seen.
Dan, what did you say? Dan Mullivan?
That's our agreement with the fair.
That's the agreement with the fair, okay.
Mark, do you want to touch on?
I'm sorry, Dan. That makes me want to ask a question, not directly appropriate to this discussion, but Dan, I've got you cornered now. The fair site over there looks beautiful as you drive by. It really does. It makes the rest of the property over there look pretty dilapidated. Was there a lot of town money spent on getting that into the condition that it's in?
No.
I could answer that. No, the Fair Association, we built the horse paddock. They put up the fence. We did I think it was about $25,000. The Fair Association reimbursed the highway department for that work.
That is correct.
Good, thank you. You can move on.
Okay, Mark, do you want to touch on the pavilion personnel or the contractual or?
As far as pavilion personnel, that basically is the cleaner. I believe John Frew is the one that's doing that. I think he's in here for his rate 1587, 500 hours for cleaning. I doubt There was probably 3 months at least. I'm thinking that pavilion was shut down, so he probably won't hit that by the end of the year as far as what was there. But I budgeted accordingly for 2021.
I should bring this up at this point. I had a conference with both John Frew and Dick Schneider, who both expressed their interest in doing the maintenance on that pavilion building. And they both opined that we did not need a third maintenance person to do it. So I don't know what your budget amount should be for that. I would take a look at past costs and make it appropriately the same as that.
That's where it's at right now, to the best
Good.
of my knowledge.
Yeah.
Good.
Any other questions? If not, we're done with Mark.
Before you move on,
Yeah, we're done. And the only adjustment we are looking at in this area, for this budget, is a review of the pavilion income items, which we will come back to you with details.
very good.
Okay.
Before you move on to the next presenter, I would like to know if everyone would like to continue to move on, or would they like to plan on next week? I say that only because I know how late we were a week ago tonight, and I don't want to put anybody through any strain that is not necessary. And we don't have a big list left.
The supervisor, nobody else was on the list for tonight.
Well, there is the dog
Yes,
control.
there is.
Yeah.
Well,
there is dog
I did not.
control.
Is he here?
No, I would be presenting that. What I might suggest,
Oh, okay.
Amber and Dan, is that I would go through the dog control, the conservation, the planning, and the zoning. Those are essentially identical budgets to the prior year. And I think we can knock those out in 10, 15 minutes.
I'm gonna time you.
Yeah. So
All right, then let's do it and get it over with.
Right, and then what we would leave for next week would be the assessor, the Rick Tracy fire code disaster. We'd cover the supervisor budget, and then finance and fringe benefits. And I do, I'll probably help Jerry along with the supervisor budget as far as going through that. So next week.
And the library. Dan,
Yeah,
don't forget the library. You
in
moved that
library.
from
I'm
last
sorry,
week.
you're right. You know
Boy,
what?
he's in trouble now.
I'm in trouble. Yeah, so we'll let Kirsten go first, and then we'll tackle the rest. All right. So let's look at the dog control right now. That would be your page 10.
I think Doug was on earlier.
Was he?
Doug Platt was on earlier, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and this is, he's our assistant dog control officer. What you'll see, here's the budget. And real simply, all we did was set the same numbers as we had for 2021 as we have for 2020. I don't get a response, so I simply base it on that. Now, as we look at the history, again, the personnel services include the pay for Mike and for Doug. They're both salaried. And so, consequently, that's not going to change with any hourly adjustment. And then on the contractual, we dropped in $350 last year. That can be mileage. That can be a variety of things that they may pick up. I believe that may pick up some kennel costs at Southside, Pam. I think that's in there.
Right.
And, so some incidentals, again, not a huge number. The long and the short is that I set the budget at identical numbers to 2020. Any question?
None from Jerry.
No.
Cool. All right, let's do conservation. And again, yeah, that's David Watson, but that's Dan Klemick, and that's your page 8. And once again, you're going to see a similar number. The difference between 3491 and 3490 is just a rounding number on how it's calculated. And that's the only cost we have here. There's the wages for, we pay the chair $862 annually in 4 installments. And then we pay, there's 4 members and they each get $657, comes to the 3490. Again, those are set numbers for the people that are on the conservation board.
Did the chair respond to your request?
You know what? I think he did come back and say, yeah, everything was fine. That's the, if I got that, that would be it.
Okay.
I just don't get a lot of response from the boards. Let's go to the next one. That would be planning. That's your page 70. And this one has a little bit more to it. The planning fees were budgeted for $2,800 for 2020. The 6-month figure was $875. Again, I could look at what we have with that as well. I just left that at $2,800. You know, if it's off a couple $100, you know, if it varies by a couple $100, it's not, you know, not a deal breaker. The payroll, again, is based on the wages. The chair gets $987 annually, and there are 4 members that get $760 each. That comes up to the $4,027. Again, that's just a rounding adjustment from the current year budget. And on the contractual, I took a look at some history in this area, and some of the contractual relates to things like engineering costs and so on. And I felt that that number could go down to $3,000 without any trouble. There's a few other things that go into that, but I felt there was a good savings there.
When you mentioned engineering costs, am I wrong in assuming that most engineering costs are billed to the user?
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. Pam will do that billing and do that collection.
What costs would be outside that would require a $3,000?
Maybe attendance at some of the planning board meetings, you know, things of that nature that aren't specific to a specific job, a specific project. Again, it's
Well,
cost, yeah.
they're required to do professional development, so many
Yes.
hours. I don't know what it is, but the 3,000 still seems high for that. I'll be curious to see what the zoning board put in for their professional
Yeah.
development.
I think it's high also.
And Amber, what I did was I kind of took a look at the 3 years and then I just came up with a number, to be honest, because I got no feedback. I get no response. So this is an accountant saying, okay, I think that's a good number. Nothing more. I think
Dan,
those are-
is there ever anything in the budget process after the budget's done that you can go in and pull up A8020 for line 4 contractual for 2020 planning board? It was budgeted 3,900, but what actually was expended out of that A8020?
Yeah, the answer yes, yes, Amber. I can go into each year again. The KBS software we use, I can go into each individual year. For example, here's 2017. Excuse me, and we had 3,078 of actual expense. I can go back in and I can see what the budget was for that year, and see how that compares. Same thing for 18, same thing for 19, and I can give you that comparison if you would like. I'll be glad to do that.
I know it would be helpful for me just to get a better handle on it. I don't know how Councilman Woolever or Supervisor Cusey feels about that. If it's not too much to ask.
Not a problem, Amber. I'll try to get that to you tomorrow. It may be Monday.
That's
Hey,
okay.
Dan, I'm
Send a
sorry to
copy to
interrupt.
me.
One thing I'm
Jerry, I will,
thinking, one thing I'm thinking of how we could move forward. I keep hearing you say, I didn't hear back, or I don't hear back, or I didn't get anything. And I'm wondering moving forward, even looking forward into next week, how can we help with that process moving into next year? How can we help support you with that? You don't have to answer me now, but if you can think of anything, I'm sure Amber, Dan, myself, and Jerry could help support you in that.
Certainly, yeah, let me give it a little bit of thought. I would tell you, generally speaking, as you can see, the conservation, the planning, the zoning are departments that have very, very little activity. They're primarily payroll and a few out-of-pocket costs. But yeah, let me get back to you and I'll let you know. I'll be glad to.
Okay.
Okay. Last one is zoning, which is your page 91. And Lee actually had responded to me on this one. There was my response. That's what I got. And so, and that's more than I usually get. So what can I say? All right. So in the area of zoning fees, I took a look. I bumped it up to 500 because we had already hit $300 this year. And I'm saying, you know what? I think we could probably get a couple hundred more there, but if you all would like that to go back down to 300, that's fine.
That's interesting because didn't they go for a long time without meetings?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, if you like, I'll take that back to 300. That's fine.
I would.
Okay, not a problem. Again, it's an accountant looking at a number and saying, okay, I think this is good. Okay, personnel services, you could see, and the contractual, again, I just dropped in the same numbers. Again, as I say, it's based on, with a small increase I had in the wages here, the chair gets $862 per year. The members, there's 4, get a $657 each, comes to the $34.90 that shows there. Again, the difference is just a rounding. So that's, I'll make that adjustment in the zoning fees. And we're done with that one. And if you would like, I can hit one more. That'd be special districts. That one should go very, very fast as well.
We'll allow that one more, Dan.
Okay, good.
Oh, what's Amber? Dan, if I look at your 6 months for 2020 on zoning, you just have a dash. Does that mean they have not used up any of that $300 to this point?
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. There was nothing turned in there, at that particular point. So I had no cost.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Let's hit our special districts again. As I say, this one should go relatively quick as well, and then we can cross that one off our list. I'm just catching up my notes here real fast so I know where I'm at for next time. Okay. The special districts, really, there's 2 special districts. There's the drainage district and there's the Phelps water. On the drainage district, every year, again, for I have no idea how long, we budget for, and there is a tax, and it is part of the property tax, $19,000. So we just continue that. Interest income, because there is a separate bank account that earns interest on the funds that are in the drainage district. I anticipate we'll make $15 a year on that. The Phelps water, you'll see that number is going down. That number is based entirely on the cost of the retirement of the bonds we have for Phelps water, and it goes down because each year, as we pay down on the principal each year, the interest goes down as well.
When will that retire?
It goes down, I believe 2027 is the last year, and there's our schedule. There's where we get $5,000 a year. Current balance on that is $35,000 after this year, and then this is what the interest the total with the interest calculation.
Sure.
For that. So that's again, the 7144 is made up of $5,000 that'll be paid on principal. The principal on that is paid every December, and there are semi-annual payments on the interest that are made in June and December. We have made the June payment already this year, and we'll make the, of course, the December payment as well.
You have an example in your head of what a typical resident pays extra in taxes for that bond?
No, I do not. I can come up with that. I'd have to take a look at the tax rolls.
Don't spend a lot of time, just approximate.
Yeah, I haven't, I don't have any number for you, Jerry, off the top of my head.
And I could just pull up somebody's tax
Yeah.
bill, tell you.
Yeah, we could do that off the tax roll and then just, let you know what that is. That's
Yeah,
no problem.
that'll, anytime, don't have to do it tonight.
No problem. Now, annually, we go down to, these are the revenue numbers. Again, as I say, the 19 we budget every year, and that is a tax outside of the property tax for the highway, general, and library funds. And then we also bill on the special districts. That's why they're called special districts for the Phelps water. Now, on the expense side, we budget $25,000 that we can spend, even though we're only taxing for 19. You can see the first three columns is what we spent in 17, 18, and 19. Mark controls that area, and again, he'll turn in bills that'll go into the abstract, and they'll refer to items for the drainage district. As those bills come in, we reimburse out of the drainage district's bank account, dollar for dollar, whatever monies he has used. Again, we budget $25,000. You can see he doesn't spend that. And the Phelps, here's the costs for the Phelps water. It's $5,000 a year. Again, we didn't spend the $5,000 through the 6 months because it's paid in December. And here is the interest. The interest, here's the June installment for the interest. Of course, the total will then be another $1,225 in December. And that's how we got to $74.50. Next year, our total interest cost is only $21.44 as per our schedule, $21.43.75.
What was that original bond amount?
I would have to get back to you. I don't remember off the top of my head. I can get to it. Yeah,
That's okay.
Yeah, I will get back to you on that. I would have to get back to you. I don't know that.
Thank you.
You bet. And that's the special districts. Any questions on those?
Not from Jerry.
I'm good.
Okay, it's 5 minutes to 10. I'm prepared to keep going if you all want, or we just call it quits and we'll hit it next Wednesday with a balance.
Out of a courtesy to all attendees and participants, I say, let's go to next week.
Sounds good.
Sounds great.
Agreed.
And I will, in the meantime, I will work through the adjustments that we have and forward a summary of that to each of you. And Victoria, I keep forgetting to mention you, but I will make sure I get you included in this.
Thank you.
And so I'll get that and give you an update on that so that as we go into next week, we have a sense of where we're at. If my math is good at this moment, for what I had done, we're somewhere around $131,000 short at this point. That would assume no application of unexpended fund balance, to balancing the budget. So that's where we're at. Any questions, anyone?
I don't have any, and I thank you very much.
Take care.
And I move that this special budget meeting be adjourned. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second it. Well, both will. Victoria, go for it.
Aye.
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 Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Take care.
Good
Good
night.
night.